Welcome to the Science of Ageless Living. I'm Dr. Ethan Hausman-Marquis, founder of the Catalyst Clinic in London, as New York, and Zurich, where we focus on personalized, cutting-edge strategies to extend health span and vitality. Today's episode takes us into one of the most exciting and emerging frontiers in longevity science, Senolytics therapies designed to selectively eliminate aged, dysfunctional cells in our bodies. Now, imagine this. What if we could identify and clear out the bad actors of aging, the cells that drive inflammation, slow healing, and accelerate degeneration? Every day, deep within our tissues, billions of cells are working hard to keep us alive and well. But as we age, some cells lose their ability to divide and function properly. These so-called senescent cells don't just sit quietly in the background. They secrete harmful substances that can damage surrounding tissues, ramp up chronic inflammation, and essentially poison the well for the healthy cells around them. That's the revolutionary promise of Senolytics, the ability to target and sweep away these dysfunctional cells, potentially slowing or even reversing aspects of biological aging. This isn't just theoretical science. Senolytic therapies are at the intersection of molecular biology, clinical trials, and regenerative medicine, areas that deeply connect to my own work in aesthetics, peptides, and longevity. In fact, some early clinical studies have already shown improvements in physical function and markers of chronic disease, simply by clearing out these lingering, problematic cells. So in today's episode, we're going to dive deep. What are senolytics, really? How do they work? What does the latest research reveal about their safety and effectiveness? And perhaps most importantly, how close are we to making senolytics a routine part of ageless living? I truly believe this is where the science of ageless living is heading. Not just adding years to our lives, but adding vibrant, healthy years. So stay with me as we explore this groundbreaking new chapter in longevity medicine. Let's start at the beginning. What are senescent cells? You might have heard them referred to as zombie cells. And honestly, that's not just a catchy name. These are cells that have stopped dividing. They've essentially reached the end of their functional lifespan. But, and here's the twist, they refuse to die and clear themselves out like they're supposed to. Instead, they stubbornly stick around in our tissues. Now you might be wondering, what's the problem with a few extra cells hanging around? Well, the issue is that senescent cells are far from harmless. They don't just sit there quietly. Instead, they turn into tiny toxic factories, spewing out a cocktail of inflammatory signals, destructive enzymes, and signaling molecules. Collectively, scientists call this secreted soup the SASP, or senescence-associated secretory phenotype. Let me put this in perspective. Think of SASP as a slow chemical leak. Imagine you have a drawer full of batteries. One old battery starts to leak. It's not catastrophic at first, but as time passes, that slow leak starts corroding everything around it. Other batteries, the drawer itself, whatever's nearby, the damage slowly spreads. Senescent cells behave in exactly this way inside us. Their SASP leaks out, creating a toxic environment that harms neighboring healthy cells. This process, this slow, steady leakage of toxic signals, is intimately linked to almost every hallmark of aging that we see and feel. Loss of skin elasticity. Senescent cells contribute by breaking down collagen and supporting structures. Decreased muscle strength. They interfere with muscle regeneration. Impaired immune function, cardiovascular disease, even neurodegeneration. All of these have been traced, at least in part, to the chronic presence and activity of senescent cells. Scientists are now realizing that these zombie cells are not only a passenger in the aging process, they are very much in the driver's seat, accelerating tissue breakdown and inflaming the path toward age-related disease. So how do we end up with these cells in the first place? Senescence is actually a protective mechanism. When a cell experiences too much damage, maybe it's been hit by UV rays, or it's accumulated too many errors in its DNA, it can switch on this senescent program as a kind of self-sacrifice. By stopping division, the cell prevents itself from turning cancerous. In our youth, the immune system is usually good at recognizing and clearing away these senescent cells. But as we age, the system becomes less efficient. The zombie cells start to pile up and the damage accumulates. What's fascinating is how a small number of senescent cells can have an outsized effect. It's not that half your cells have gone rogue. Even a tiny percentage, less than 1% in some tissues, can create enough CSP to disrupt normal function. The result? Chronic low-grade inflammation, tissue breakdown, and a biological snowball effect that can drive everything from wrinkled skin to frail bones and even cognitive decline. So when we talk about longevity, about truly ageless living, it's not just about adding years, but about reducing the burden of these zombie cells and their toxic influence. This is the root cause of so many of the things we associate with aging, not just how we look, but how we feel and function day to day. That's why, in the next segment, we're going to dive into the science of senolytics, the therapies designed to find and eliminate these problem cells. It's cutting edge, it's promising, and it could very well be the next great leap in longevity medicine. Stay with me. So, where do senolytics come in? Now that we've met the troublemakers senescent or zombie cells, let's talk about our biological cleanup crew, senolytics. These are therapies specifically designed to seek out and remove senescent cells, all while sparing our healthy, functioning cells. Think of them like a highly trained SWAT team moving in to eliminate the bad actors and restore order in the neighborhood. The magic of senolytics lies in their selectivity. Senescent cells rely on unique survival pathways to avoid death. Senolytics target these pathways, making the zombie cells vulnerable so they can be swept away by the body's natural processes. The result? Less chronic inflammation, improved tissue function, and potentially a slowing or even reversal of age-related decline. Let's break down the main types of senolytic agents currently making headlines. Natural compounds. Some of the most accessible senolytics are found right in our kitchens. This flavonoid is found in strawberries, apples, and cucumbers. Animal studies have shown that fisetin can reduce the burden of senescent cells, and early human trials are promising. Quercetin, abundant in onions, kale, and green tea, quercetin has demonstrated senolytic effects, especially when used in combination therapies. So, yes, there's science behind that old saying about eating your fruits and veggies, pharmaceutical agents. Then there are drugs originally developed for other conditions, now being repurposed as senolytics. This is a cancer drug, specifically used in leukemia. When combined with quercetin, dasatinib has been shown in human trials to clear senescent cells from tissues and even improve physical function in older adults. Navitoclax. Another cancer drug, navitoclax targets a different survival pathway in senescent cells. While promising, it also comes with side effects like low platelet counts, so research is ongoing to find safer ways to use it. Peptides and novel biologics. Here's where things get really futuristic. This is a synthetic peptide, designed to block the signals that keep senescent cells alive. By disrupting these signals, FOXO4-DRI essentially nudges zombie cells into self-destruction. In preclinical studies, this peptide has shown the ability to rejuvenate tissues and even improve organ function in aged animals. What sets senolytics apart from other anti-aging strategies is that they don't just mask symptoms, they go after the root cause, dysfunctional, lingering cells driving the aging process. And here's the most exciting part. In animal studies and early human research, senolytics haven't just slowed aging, they've actually reversed certain aspects of age-related decline. Mice treated with senolytics show improved heart function, greater exercise capacity, and even regrowth of lost hair. In early human studies, older adults with lung disease showed improved walking distance after a short course of senolytic drugs. This is not just about looking younger, but about restoring vitality and resilience at the cellular level. We're standing at the threshold of a new era in longevity medicine. Imagine a future where age-related diseases, arthritis, cardiovascular decline, even neurodegeneration can be delayed or reversed, not by treating symptoms, but by clearing the toxic cellular clutter that drives them. Of course, this science is still young. There are questions about dosing, long-term effects, and how best to deploy these therapies. But the momentum is real, and the promise is enormous. In our next segment, we'll explore the real-world research, clinical trials, and what you should know before considering senolytics for yourself. Stay tuned as we continue our journey into the science of ageless living. All right, let's dive into the heart of the matter. What does the evidence say so far about senolytics? Are we really seeing the promise of ageless living in real clinical results, or is this just hype? Let's begin with perhaps the best-known senolytic cocktail, dasatinib and quercetin. This dynamic duo has been the subject of some of the earliest and most compelling clinical trials. One of the landmark studies looked at patients with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF, a devastating progressive lung disease that robs people of their breath and independence. In this small but groundbreaking trial, patients received intermittent doses of dasatinib and quercetin. What happened? The results were remarkable. Participants showed improved physical function, meaning they could walk farther and with greater ease. Even more exciting, the trial revealed reduced markers of cellular senescence in these patients' bodies. For a condition like IPF, where conventional treatments are often modest at best, this was a major milestone. But it doesn't end there. Another clinical trial applied senolytics to people living with chronic kidney disease, a common age-related condition that impacts millions worldwide. Here, too, the results were promising. Patients experienced improvements in kidney function and a reduction in circulating inflammatory factors. Chronic inflammation is one of the hallmarks of aging, and seeing it reduced is a strong signal that senolytics are doing more than window dressing, they're making a difference at the cellular and systemic level. Now, let's turn to fisetin, the natural senolytic found in everyday foods like strawberries and apples. While most of the headline-grabbing research has been in animals, the signals in humans are beginning to catch up. In mice, fisetin treatment has extended health span, the period of life spent in good health, while reducing frailty and improving metabolic function. Early human studies and ongoing clinical trials are showing promising hints that these benefits might translate to us. For example, frail older adults given fisetin have shown signs of improved resilience and reduced markers of inflammation. So, across both preclinical studies, mostly in animals, and early human trials, a few key trends emerge. Improved physical performance, people are walking farther, feeling stronger. Reduction in inflammation, with lower markers of chronic inflammation, which is a key driver of age-related disease. Regeneration of tissue function. From lungs to kidneys, we're seeing hints that the body can restore some lost capabilities when senescent cells are cleared. Now, I want to be clear, this is still early days. Most of these clinical trials have been small, with limited numbers of participants. The durations are often short weeks or months, rather than years. And many of the studies are exploratory, designed to test safety and look for signals of benefit rather than deliver definitive proof. We don't yet know the long-term safety profile of these drugs, especially the pharmaceutical ones like dasatinib, which were originally developed to treat cancer. We also need to understand which patients benefit most, how often treatment should be given, and whether clearing senescent cells in one tissue might have unintended effects elsewhere. Despite these caveats, the compelling consistency of the data across multiple diseases, different types of senolytics, and both animal and human studies has energized the field like few discoveries before. Researchers are launching larger, more rigorous clinical trials around the world. The hope is that, with time, we'll have definitive answers about who should take senolytics, how often, and for what conditions. So, to sum up, the evidence for senolytics is promising but preliminary. We're seeing measurable improvements in physical function, inflammation, and possibly even tissue regeneration. Caution is warranted, but the field is expanding rapidly, and the next few years will be critical in determining whether senolytics can truly deliver on the promise of ageless living. Next up, we'll look at what this could mean for you, what's available today, what's coming, and what to look out for as the science continues to evolve. All right, now let's shift gears to an area that's especially close to my heart, the intersection of senolytics with cosmetic and regenerative medicine. Imagine this. You've just had a cutting-edge regenerative treatment. Maybe it's a stem cell injection, platelet-rich plasma, PRP, or one of those advanced peptide protocols that's been making waves. Now, what if I told you that adding senolytics to these protocols could amplify their effects? Here's why. As we age, senescent cells build up in our skin, especially in fibroblasts. Those are the cells that produce collagen and keep our skin firm, elastic, and able to repair itself. Senescent fibroblasts, on the other hand, are like dysfunctional workers who not only slack off, but also actively sabotage the team. They secrete inflammatory factors, break down collagen, and create a less responsive environment for any rejuvenation treatment you might try. Clear those cells out with senolytic therapy, and suddenly you've got a cleaner slate. Your skin is more receptive to regenerative treatments. We're talking about improved skin quality, tighter connective tissue, better results from your favorite procedures, whether that's microneedling, laser, or injectables. But it's not just about skin. Hair loss is another area where senolytics show real promise. Hair follicles are incredibly sensitive to their cellular environment, and if that environment is bogged down by senescent cells, hair regrowth treatments can lose their effectiveness. By clearing out senescent cells from the scalp, we may be able to rejuvenate the follicular environment, making it more conducive to growth. That means therapies like PRP or exosome injections for hair restoration could work even better and maybe even help those who haven't responded to past treatments. And let's not forget about orthopedics and sports medicine, areas where joint pain and tissue damage can be truly life-limiting. Think about all the biologic injections happening today: stem cells, PRP, hyaluronic acid. What if you could prime the tissue first by removing senescent cells? The theory is you could enhance joint regeneration and speed up recovery, making those biologic therapies even more effective. At the Catalyst Clinic, I've seen firsthand how layering advanced protocols can transform patient outcomes. We already integrate NAD plus microdosing, peptide therapies, and state-of-the-art diagnostics to optimize cellular health. But here's where senolytics excite me most. They address the underlying cellular clutter, the junk that builds up with age and slows down everything else we're trying to do. By clearing out senescent cells before rebuilding, we're not just stacking therapies on top of dysfunction. We're restoring a more youthful cellular environment. It's like renovating a house. You wouldn't put in new furniture before clearing out the old broken stuff. So as we look to the future, I see senolytics as the natural next layer in cosmetic and regenerative medicine. This isn't just about looking younger. It's about creating an environment where all our modern interventions can truly shine. As we continue exploring the next frontier of longevity medicine, it's crucial to pause and address the ethical, regulatory, and practical considerations surrounding senolytics, because every groundbreaking advance in medicine brings with it not just hope and excitement, but also important questions and responsibilities. Let's start with where things stand today. Senolytics are not yet approved as anti-aging drugs. Instead, they're being investigated for their potential in treating very specific diseases. Things like idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis or certain types of osteoarthritis. This means that outside of clinical trials, their use is still in somewhat of a gray area. Now, there's a growing community of biohackers who are experimenting with over-the-counter compounds like quercetin or fisetin in hopes of mimicking the senolytic effect. But as enticing as that sounds, it's a far cry from the rigorous, controlled environment of a medical trial. The truth is, the medical community has to tread carefully because safety always comes first. So what are the risks? One big concern is off-target effects. Senolytics are designed to seek and destroy senescent cells, but biology is rarely that tidy. There's the possibility of depleting beneficial senescent cells. Yes, some senescent cells actually play a role in wound healing and tissue repair. Remove too many, and you might disrupt important healing processes. There's also the question of interactions with other therapies. Many patients interested in longevity medicine are already on complex protocols involving peptides, hormones, or regenerative treatments. We simply don't have enough robust data yet to predict all the interactions. This is where regulatory bodies like the FDA and EMA come in. They're keeping a close eye on the emerging research, and rightfully so. Their job is to ensure that when senolytics finally do make it to market, they're both safe and effective for the people who need them most. And for clinicians like myself, there's a delicate balance, staying at the forefront of innovation while also being stewards of patient safety. It's about asking the right questions, scrutinizing the data, and never losing sight of our ethical responsibility to do no harm. But here's the truly exciting part. Every major revolution in medicine began in this space between promise and proof. Think about antibiotics. A century ago, the idea of curing infections was considered science fiction. Immunotherapy for cancer was once a wild hypothesis. Today, they're part of standard care. Senolytics are now in that same liminal space. We're standing on the threshold, not just of extending lifespan, but improving health span. The road ahead will demand caution, curiosity, and a rigorous commitment to ethics. So as we look forward, let's embrace the promise of senolytics while respecting the process that will ultimately make them safe and accessible for all. Because true ageless living isn't just about going further, it's about doing so wisely, responsibly, and together. Let's look ahead. Where is the field of senolytics really going? If the last few years are any indication, the answer is everywhere and fast. Right now, we're witnessing clinical trials that would have been considered science fiction just a decade ago. Researchers are testing senolytics not only in rare diseases, but in some of the biggest challenges of aging, Alzheimer's disease, osteoarthritis, even metabolic disorders like diabetes. Each of these trials brings us closer to understanding how clearing senescent cells could transform the aging process itself. But here's what's even more exciting. Personalization is on the horizon. The future isn't just about one-size-fits-all senolytic drugs. Instead, we're moving toward therapies tailored to the individual, using biomarkers, genetic risk scores, and tissue-specific aging signatures to predict who will benefit most, when, and how. Imagine a world where your doctor can assess your personal senescent cell load, maybe with a blood test or advanced imaging, and then recommend a targeted senolytic treatment plan just for you. That's where we're heading, precision longevity medicine. I truly believe that within the next decade, senolytics will join the core pillars of longevity science, right alongside metabolic optimization, immune rejuvenation, and regenerative biologics. We'll be able to not only extend lifespan, but more importantly, extend health span, the years we spend living vibrantly, independently, and fully engaged in life. Because at the end of the day, this is about so much more than just adding years to our lives. It's about adding life to those years, empowering us all to stay active, connected, and thriving well into the future. And that, to me, is the real promise of senolytics. As we wrap up today's episode, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. Senescent cells, those so-called zombie cells, are more than just a scientific curiosity. They're active drivers of aging and disease, lingering in our tissues and fueling inflammation, tissue breakdown, and chronic illness. But now, with the rise of senolytics, we're seeing the first real therapies designed to seek out and clear away these dysfunctional cells. Early studies are already revealing remarkable possibilities: improved physical function, reduced inflammation, and hints of actual tissue regeneration. And the potential applications are vast. Everything from aesthetics and skin health to regenerative medicine to whole body wellness. It's an incredibly exciting time. But as with any breakthrough, we need to proceed thoughtfully. The promise of senolytics is huge, but so is our responsibility to ensure that these therapies are safe, effective, and grounded in solid evidence. Balancing excitement with caution is key. If there's one idea I want you to take away from today, it's this. Senolytics aren't just about adding years to your life. They're about adding life to your years. It's about clearing out the old dysfunctional cells to make way for renewal, vitality, and a better quality of living. Thank you so much for joining me on the Science of Ageless Living. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, connect with us at the Catalyst Clinic. Stay tuned for our next deep dive, where we'll explore how peptides are joining forces with senolytics to push the boundaries of longevity even further. Until next time, stay curious, stay vital, and keep living ageless.